fifth training tape of the 2011 season, and we'll focus primarily on the passing game. Specifically, we'll be talking about defensive pass interference and offensive pass interference. Knowing what is and what is not pass interference is clearly spelled out in Rule 7, Section 3, Article 8. But knowing when to call it and applying the proper judgment is the key to our success. If we break down pass interference, first looking at defensive pass interference, we can put each of these plays in categories. The 6 categories that we're going to speak to today have to do with early contact and not playing the ball, playing through the back of a receiver, grabbing and restricting a receiver's arm or body, extending an arm across the body or an arm bar of the receiver, cutting off or riding the receiver out of the path of the ball, and the 6th category is hooking and restricting a receiver in an attempt to get to the ball. When we look at offensive pass interference, this penalty can be broken down into 3 categories. The first, initiating contact with a defender to create separation. Second, driving through a defender who has established position. And third, picking off a defender who is attempting to cover a receiver. We also include what is not pass interference for the offense or the defense. We know in both categories any slight or incidental contact is not a foul. If we have inadvertent tangled feet, that would not be considered a foul. Or, of course, if the ball is not catchable, we would not have offense or defensive pass interference. One additional category as far as offensive pass interference is concerned has to do with blocking downfield and the quarterback legally throws or grounds the ball. Secondly, if linemen are blocking downfield on an overthrown screen pass, we know that we give them up to 3 yards to be downfield. And thirdly, on a pick play, and the defender is blocking the receiver when contact occurs, if this contact occurs at or less than 1 yard of the line of scrimmage. So keeping these categories in mind, let's take a look at some plays. Our first category is early contact, not playing the ball. Here we're going to see at the bottom of the screen a fade pass with Penn State and Ohio State. The defender is playing the receiver and not the ball and attempts to turn at the last second after he has contacted the receiver. This is a good call and an excellent position by the field judge. Our next play involves early contact and not playing the ball. Wisconsin versus Michigan State. This is a good example of early contact and attempting to turn, however, making contact before he finds the ball. Remember, just because the defender turns his head does not allow him to play through the defender. He must be making a bona fide attempt to play the ball. Positioning by these officials are excellent. Field judge makes the proper call for defensive pass interference. As the contact occurs first, then the defender turns his head trying to play the ball. Ball State versus Central Michigan. Another example of a defender not playing the ball throughout the process of the pass. In this case, the onus again falls on the defender. Any contact in this case, and we have several examples, several angles, we would want defensive pass interference called. Side judge is in very good position to make this call, and we also would expect the back judge to come across and help in this type of play. Proper call, defensive pass interference. Our next category for defensive pass interference has to do with playing through the back of the receiver. This game involves Western Michigan and Rice. It's an excellent example of playing through the back. The defender is playing the man, not the ball, and arrives early. It's a very good pickup by the back judge, and also the head linesman comes down after he reads pass and throws the flag, properly called defensive pass interference. Florida Atlantic versus Michigan State. Another good example of early contact by the defender while the ball is in the air, knocking the receiver off his feet. We've got a couple shots of this. This is properly called defensive pass interference, and the side judge should have this play from the beginning to end. Our third category in defensive pass interference has to do with grabbing and restricting a receiver's arm or body. Our first play involves Michigan State versus Ohio State. In this play, we can see that the defender is in a chase mode and playing catch-up. As the play develops, we can see that the defender grabs the receiver's arm, preventing him from making a clean play on this ball. This is DPI and is best seen by the back judge, who has an inside-out look at this type of action. Fresno State versus Rutgers. The replay of this action clearly shows the defender having hold of the receiver's arm while the receiver is attempting to make a play on the ball. This is the side judge and the back judge's responsibility. Both are in good position to see this action, and we would like 2 flags on this play. Florida versus Florida State. This is a very good call for a DPI for an early arm grab as it occurs early in the route, keeping the defender in the play. Good position by the field judge and good job of continuing to officiate the play. Oregon State and Stanford. Excellent call by the back judge. The defender is beat and in a chase mode. He reaches and grabs the receiver's arm prior to the ball arriving. This is the type of officiating that we would expect from the back judge position on these types of plays. He has a perfect inside-out look. He's helping the field judge at the bottom of the screen. When we do have a play like this, it's probably good to get together and discuss what the back judge has and with the field judge or his counterpart at the top of the screen, his side judge. Ohio State and Michigan State. Good positioning by the side judge on this play to see the action by the defender. Notice that the defender is attempting to catch up to the receiver and using the receiver as leverage with one arm while attempting to play the ball. Excellent call by this crew. Our fourth category for defensive pass interference is armbar. This involves Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech. This is a good example of an armbar as the defender has his right arm across the receiver's body and leaves it there as he's moving down the field with the receiver. Although he does turn and attempt to play the ball, he is restricting the receiver's movement with his right arm. Correct call, defensive pass interference for an armbar. Utah versus Michigan. Good example of an armbar. The defender is not playing the ball and his right arm across the receiver as the receiver is attempting to run his pattern while the ball is in the air. This is good position by the field judge and an excellent call. LSU versus Arkansas. Another good example of an armbar as the defender has his right arm across the receiver's arm in an attempt to play the ball. Good positioning by the field judge in this case. Back judge, you should also have a good look at this play. As we took a look at the replays of this play, you can clearly see that the right arm is coming across the receiver's arm and restricting him to the path of the ball. This play involves Kansas versus University of South Florida as the defender runs in front of the receiver and causing him to alter his path to the ball, and in the process he does reach out and grab this receiver. This is defensive pass interference for a cutoff. Tulane versus SMU. Another good example of a cutoff, as in this case the defender is not playing the ball, really does not have any idea where the ball is, and he's contacting the receiver, preventing him from getting to the ball. Proper call, defensive pass interference for a cutoff. Florida Atlantic versus Michigan State. Good example of a cutoff. This is early contact, not playing the ball while the ball is in the air as he rides him out of bounds. Field judge, correct call, defensive pass interference. Our sixth and final category for defensive pass interference is hook and turn. Our first couple plays involve Boston College and Florida State, and it's an excellent example of a hook and turn. As in this first play, the defender grabs the receiver's arm and turns him prior to the ball arriving. Back judge stays with his key. Good call, defensive pass interference for a hook and turn. Staying with the same game, Boston College and Florida State, another good example of a hook and turn. Notice that the defender is in a press coverage on this play, and the ball is being snapped inside the red zone. This is the widest receiver on the field, and the initial key is to the field judge. We would want the field judge to stay with this receiver longer in this situation, and would expect the field judge also to be on this call. It's a good pickup by the back judge, covering off his initial key and going to the ball. The next area of defensive pass interference many times brings in tripping. We talked about incidental tripping or accidental tripping. There are really two categories for tripping when you look at pass interference. The receiver and defender are running side by side or nearly side by side and their feet get tangled. We have no foul on either player. However, if the defender is in a chase mode or the receiver in a chase mode and the feet get tangled, the onus falls on the defender or the person in the chase mode, regardless if he turns his head in an attempt to play the ball. This would be DPI, or on the reverse, it would be OPI. So keep this in mind as we look at the next couple plays. Our first play that involves tangled feet or tripping has to do with Michigan State and Ohio State. We have a fade pass at the bottom of the screen, and you can see the defender is beat, and he trips himself, goes to the ground, and makes contact with the receiver. In this case, it's defensive pass interference, properly called. Our next play involves inadvertent tripping, where the feet get tangled and is not considered defensive pass interference. The wide receiver at the top of the screen is in a crossing pattern over the middle. The safety is in good position. He's nearly shoulder to shoulder with the wide receiver, and he's making a bona fide attempt on the ball. He sees the ball all the way, and he plays it that way until the inadvertent tripping occurs. This action is not an obvious intent to impede the receiver. Thus, no DPI should be called in this play. Conversely, if the defender was beat or in a chase mode and has no chance to make a bona fide attempt on the ball and possibly only turns his head at the last second, and this tripping action would occur, then this would be a defensive pass interference properly called. The next section of this training tape involves offensive pass interference. As we talked about the three categories, the first category has to do with initiating contact with the defender to create separation. On our first play, you'll see Miami versus Central Michigan as a good example of a push-off by the wide receiver creating separation. The defender, in this case, has established position on the field, and the receiver makes no attempt to avoid the defender. Offensive pass interference is called properly by the head linesman and back judge. Miami of Ohio and Bowling Green involves the slot, in this case, comes down the field and creates separation. And if you take a look at the receiver coming down, he extends his arms by the receiver, making no attempt to avoid the defender in this case. Similar to the last play, offensive pass interference is properly called. The next play involves offensive pass interference, and it's a good example of blocking downfield. The wide receiver comes out and blocks his opponent and enables the slot man to run a wheel route underneath him. This should be offensive pass interference called by the side judge. Baylor versus Texas A&M. Here you'll see trips formation to the top of the screen. The third man in is the back judge's person in this case. He properly calls offensive pass interference. As the play goes through, you're going to see that third man in is going to come down, block the defender, knock him to the ground. And even though the quarterback scrambles and throws the ball away, not throwing to this man, it's still, once he throws the ball downfield past the line of scrimmage, offensive pass interference is properly called by the back judge. Had the quarterback thrown the ball away, legally grounded the ball outside the pocket, beyond the line of scrimmage, we would have not had offensive pass interference. But because he threw it to a receiver down the field, it's properly called for offensive pass interference. Iowa State. And we have a good example of blocking downfield prior to the pass. Take a look at the slot and the wide receiver at the bottom of the screen. You're going to see the slot come down, block his opponent, and allow the wide receiver at the bottom to curl inside for a completed pass. Offensive pass interference is the proper call in this play. Our next category for offensive pass interference is the pick play, and involves Iowa and Wisconsin. At the top of the screen, you're going to see we're going to end up with trip formations at the top, and we just need to stay with our keys a little bit longer in this case. The action on the wide receiver coming down the goal line is legal. However, the slot back coming in and blocking his opponent and blocking number 9, the linebacker, trying to pick up the back, is illegal. Offensive pass interference should be called in this play. Our next and final play for offensive pass interference involves a pick play. We know we talked about inside the red zone. This happens many times, and even though this play does not demonstrate a lot of blocking, take a look at the wide receiver. Field judge's man at the bottom of the screen. He'll come in and set a slight pick on the linebacker who's going to try to cover the back on this play. This is offensive pass interference for a pick play, and it should be called by the field judge. Well, that will conclude the training tape for the passing game for 2011. Each season, the passing game continues to grow and become even more important, and even a greater challenge to us. Last season, for example, 7% of our fouls had to do with defensive pass interference, and only 1% had to do with offensive pass interference. And although we've done a nice job in both categories, certainly we have room to improve. I think our keys to success and continue to stay up with the game and to meet this challenge has to do with understanding the passing game and the rules, applying the rules and putting those fouls into categories, implementing the passing philosophies that we talked about, and of course using just good common sense, knowing advantage, disadvantage in the passing game. If we follow these simple principles, I'm sure we'll have another successful season. Good luck and have a great year.